So you're basically just going to go through everything you know
Mm,
about.
yeah. So all the things I've sort of learned in my
And
general.
you've written notes about it.
I've written about 20 words. Literally, it's very brief. It's just once I start talking, I will not stop. There's so much
We
different
all know
things I
that.
found interesting. Yeah. So, and I think I'd like to also divulge into part of my own general
Okay.
experience.
Okay.
And like this is
Right.
untapped Ewan telling, so there's going to be stuff which none of my friends have heard before, but since I'm sort of
Okay.
in the podcast
Wonderful.
setting.
Okay. Okay. Welcome to the Welsh and the Wonderful podcast, episode 2. Welcome back, Ewan telling. So today it's we're kind of breaking up the formula. I've only had one episode, but there was a formula, which was basically just me chatting shit and my friends interjecting with their own chat. Doesn't matter.
Chit chatting, that works.
Chit chatting. Yes, perfect. Thank you. So this week, Ewan is going to tell us what he has discovered and about how to be an adult because we've been locked in our houses. And what else have we had to do? So, Ewan, why don't you tell us about your findings?
Yeah, so I sort of started on this path at the beginning of Corona. Actually, I'm gonna go all the way back to
Oh dear.
GCSEs,
Oh
all the
fuck.
way back to GCSEs.
I
So,
don't want to remember that.
so yeah, I got my results, and I was fairly happy with them. They now in retrospect they were like good, but they weren't that good. There's some geniuses out there which make me look incredibly stupid, but I was happy
What,
enough
like
with
me?
them. Yeah, like you, like no, but like so many different people. There's so many smart, sort of passionate people out there, which I've quickly come to understand recently.
Yeah.
But sort of apart from GCSEs, I was at a point in my life where my work ethic was incredibly low. I
I
was
I was
sort of
with you
all
in Latin class. Trust me, I know. And I've
yeah,
just
exactly
revealed
Latin.
I've just revealed that we were both doing Latin. What is wrong with me?
Okay, yeah, that's my
Okay.
social standing gone. That's another thing I need to
Oh
improve
no.
now.
Oh
But
no.
so,
Let's just start talking Latin just to confuse
I hope
and
not.
balum. Once you play the neuter game, non-vocac and all the same.
God. No, so work
Continue.
ethic was low. I think intelligence, I overestimated myself a lot. I thought I was amazing, but I'm not. And then in
No, you're
terms
not.
of,
That's always been obvious to
oh no,
those who
I
pay
wasn't.
attention.
No, and then in terms of general health, I think I was fairly overweight. Well, I wouldn't like to call it overweight because there are
You
some
weren't
people with a
fat,
real
but
problem.
you had
I
love
definitely
handles.
had I definitely had a chubby side to me. I was weighing in at 96 kilograms, which is quite a lot for the average human.
Remember when that
So,
wrestler came to our school and he bench pressed a few students?
mm,
He could have done you. He could have
yeah,
bench
he could
pressed
have.
you.
Yeah, I know, but he was huge. He was huge. Anyway, so I was at this point where I had no drive. I wasn't very healthy. My ego was way too inflated, and I had
Is
no
it?
direction in my life because I didn't know what I wanted to do.
Yeah.
Like at all. So I managed to get this mini pupillage at number 5 Chambers, which was an amazing experience through my mum. I wasn't that
Wait.
keen to
What?
do it.
Explain to those who aren't too familiar with the court of law what a chamber is.
So Chambers is where barristers basically get their work on. Barristers are self-employed. They're the people who you'll see on TV standing up in court, doing all the speaking, doing all the ponts. And so those people get all their cases and work from Chambers to simplify it a lot.
Right. So
So if there's
when you
any
got
experts out
this
there, don't shoot me.
when you got this thing from your mum, did that mean you just because your mum is a lawyer? For those who
Yeah.
don't know, but so when you got this from your mum, did you just watch barristers at work?
So no, it was actually such an amazing experience. I managed to go into court. I can't discuss what I saw because I had to sign non-disclosure agreements. So
Oh, serious.
it was fairly, yeah, it was fairly serious, fairly high up stuff. But I managed to shadow in the courtroom and outside the courtroom a fairly important barrister, and work in a team, sort of learn how to do submissions or what you submit to the judge at the end of the case, presenting your case and all that sort of thing, which was really cool experience. And I thought, okay, I've finally got some sort of direction in my life. I want to become a barrister. This is my
Yeah.
goal. But the way I was
So,
going to achieve this
do you think
was
that
nowhere near.
do you think that people need to have experiences in multiple industries in just in their like teenage years, late teenage years, 16, 17, to really gauge what they want to do? Because they might have had an idea of what they wanted to do beforehand,
Yeah,
but
I
if
think it's
you
so important to
yeah,
go out there and experience as many things as you can to
if you
try
want to be a
and gauge
prostitute,
what
then
you want to be.
shadow a prostitute for a while.
Yeah, screw it. Go ahead, do just experience as much as you can in life because you have a limited time and you don't want to spend your
So
time being miserable.
so what you're saying is that if you want a good career in the future, you should shadow a prostitute.
Maybe a successful one though. Anyway, I
So
don't want to divulge into that. That like it'll get me in trouble. So
okay.
anyway, but I'd had some sort of direction in my life, but then the other areas I was talking about, work ethic, intelligence, and then general health and fitness, was still incredibly low.
So would
Like
you argue
I
that
don't talk about it.
you can better your intelligence, because intelligence is sort of,
Yeah, you can
many would
improve it.
argue it's some
Intelligence takes you so far, but you need to take it further by having passion about your subject and doing extra bits, and even just being just generally enthusiastic. You can take it so much further, which I didn't
but
have,
so
and
so
I still haven't developed fully yet.
people can have intelligence and they're born with it, but you need enthusiasm to learn about your subject, so then you're less ignorant, you're more educated about what you want to do, how you're going to get there,
Yeah,
so you can
the
apply your
most successful
intelligence.
people in life aren't necessarily the most intelligent. Just because you went to Oxford or Cambridge doesn't mean you're going to become the richest man in the world or go straight to the top job. You need to have so much passion and enthusiasm around that. So, yeah, that's really important, and I'm going to come on and talk about that later. So, I think after that point, as I was saying, I was still relatively low in self improvement. I was incredibly self conscious, which I don't talk about because I think my friends all know that I'm very outgoing. I speak, I'm very sort of jokey and cocky in
Extroverted,
that
some
way.
may argue, which
Yeah,
isn't a bad,
but
it's not a
then
bad thing, it's just a
no,
personality.
I loved it. It's great fun, but in terms of like, I wouldn't if I was at the beach, I wouldn't take my top off. That sort of thing, you know.
Right,
And the
yeah.
general thing, and that's something which I don't think is necessarily healthy for a human. I think it's better to try and improve on that. So when I came into 6-1, I thought, okay, I've had my injury. I can no longer play rugby, which is a completely different subject. But basically, I was in a wheelchair for a
You
few
got
months.
you got
I,
stepped so hard that you it put you in a wheelchair.
I broke my ankle. Yeah, no, yeah,
Shout
and
out to
that I
Rogi for
found that.
doing that.
Yeah, and I was so sad after that because playing for the first for school was always my goal, my dream for school
No, I
sport, and
remember
I
that.
thought, damn, okay, that's been taken away from me now. I've got to put my effort into something else.
Mhm.
So a rather large Ewan decided he was going to pick up rowing in September, and no matter what, I was going to lose this weight and get a
You
better
weren't
body.
fat. You weren't fat.
Well, yeah,
You were healthy.
well, I was healthy, but it was yeah. Again, it was unnecessary weight. It wasn't good, and as I'll talk about when I started rowing, I was told, "Oh, he'll last a few weeks. The training's so difficult." And by the way, it is incredibly difficult. He
Yeah,
won't
well,
make vast strides.
One of my biggest
Sorry, carry on.
regrets from school is not taking up rowing because, yeah, I enjoyed cricket, but that's only one term out of a year, and I wasn't even that good. I was never going to end up in the firsts. I I regret not taking rowing because I think eventually it could have made me feel better about myself and
Yeah, it
been
definitely does.
bigger,
It's one of those
manlier
things which is
man.
so great for fitness. Yeah, no one would ever think you'd say that about rowing, would you? But it's one of those
No,
things where you just put in
remember
so
when we
much
used
time in the
to
gym and then
always
you
make
start,
fun
yeah.
of it?
Oh yeah, of course, of course. I still do. It's an awful sport, but I do it anyway. Anyway, so I had all these challenges crop up, and it wasn't easy. I was like feeling sick. On the first time, I was being outdone by all the boys like 2 years below, year below, just in terms of general fitness. And all the boys who I'd thought, oh, I'm a manly man, I do rugby, they're rowers, they don't do real sport, were absolutely destroying me on everything. So I thought, okay, I'm going to really apply myself. I'm going to prove my image and prove my fitness. I went on extreme dieting. I ate kale, sweet potato, and chicken seven
Oh
days a week for
Jesus!
like 2 months. Literally 2 months. No desserts at school. I would only eat like salad, rice, chicken, nothing else,
Mhm.
just to try and get that rapid improvement. And then by January, I think it is, or December, I'd lost 18.5 kilograms. So that's
Right.
so sort of 18.5 kilograms in 5 months, which I think is
Yeah,
a
that is
fairly
impressive.
good result. Yeah, so I don't know, but in this general time, I'd spent so much time concentrating on weight loss in getting that result, which I have, which I'm so happy about. Like on the other
Mhm.
day on everyone's Instagram, they posted a topless photos of us all at the beach, and I was like, yeah, I look buff. Look at me, I look amazing.
You were
not
tempting.
not actually.
You
I
were
was
tempting.
tensing so hard. My arms
You
and my face almost exploded, but it was worth it. It was so worth it. Anyway,
oh god,
so I was like,
looked
no, but
like
that
you
would
were
have
taking
never
the
happened
hardest
before.
shit of your life.
Do you know what? I might have. I can't really remember much because I almost passed out. The blood went to my brain. Anyway, so that would have never happened before, and I was just so happy about that. But it did come at a cost where my schoolwork across the length of this year in quality has gone down extreme amounts. My work ethic was completely off. I was just watching TV instead of doing schoolwork because I was so tired at the end of
Mhm.
the day. And then I don't know, I was getting, usually for me, it's normal to get A's on most of my preps throughout the year. This year it's been B's and occasional C's, and then
God,
sometimes there would
whatever
be
will you do?
splattered. No, but for in gems, general terms of, it's all relative, that you want to be the best you can be, no matter who
Yeah.
you are. So for me, being the best I can be is getting hopefully A star pieces of work rather than getting B's and C's.
Mhm. So
And
how
then
the topic of this podcast is basically how have you gone about bettering yourself in lockdown and
so so y- so y-
how what you've done. So what have you done
yeah, so
during lockdown
this
to
is wait, this is relevant. The bit coming up, I think, because I want to talk about how coronavirus has played such an important part in that general betterment for me. So, as I said, my work ethic was off. I'd finally got sort of my body, but I was doing nothing to improve my work ethic or my intelligence or anything. And then it finally came with actually the nail in the coffin of not getting senior prefect. That was something I thought, okay, I am guaranteed to get senior prefect. Like, look at the other
well,
people.
you
Like,
always
come
behaved
on.
like a prefect.
Of course, I was so well behaved. No, but even so,
No, it's not that.
I've done so
It's
much
just
for
the air
school.
of superiority.
Oh yeah, of course. Yeah. But I just always thought I'd done so much for the school. It's guaranteed, like come on. And then I got rejected from being senior prefect, and I was like, went into extreme self-pity, and I was incredibly miserable and sad. I
Did you
didn't sort of
literally have a downfall over not becoming a prefect?
I literally did, because it was
Oh
such a
god.
knock to my ego. It was such a knock to my ego where I
How am I
had,
supposed
because
to
I
degrade
did have
my
a
fellow students from a position lower than
decent.
them?
Yeah, exactly. So no, no, not really, but it's like one of those things where it helps you in your university application. And I
Yeah,
thought, if I can't get senior prefect, how the hell am I going to get into one of
Oxbridge.
the inns, which is or just in the general barristers' chambers in the future? How the hell am I going to do that if I can't compete against 12 other members of my school? So I did go into a period of self pity. Well, maybe that's completely unjustified and very self indulgent. But
No,
anyway,
people are
that's my
allowed to pity
personality.
themselves over anything. It's just how you pick yourself up out of it, which determines if you are
Yeah.
ready
So
for the future. So, how did you pick yourself out of it, and what did you do?
well, I went to my dad's for school term starting again, just to have a change of scene. You're allowed to do that under Corona, by the way. Just wanna say for the people who are like, oh, it's not with the guidelines. Yes, it is. I'm from a broken home. It's great. Anyway,
Lovely.
so so I went to stay at my dad's, and my brother was there, and he was just like, Ewan, what are you doing? You are being incredibly lazy. And he was already on this process of self improvement himself. He was taking online courses,
Well, to
doing
be
as much as
fair,
he
your
could.
brother did make it into one of the most popular unis in the world. So
Yeah, he did. Well,
self-improvement
he's
for
an
him
incredibly clever
is,
guy.
yeah, it,
Yeah, he's an
self-improvement
incredibly
means
clever
different
guy.
things for different people. Like for you, it might be bettering your work ethic. For other people, it could be letting themselves do what they love more and focusing less on school. Maybe if you dedicate your life to school, then unis are just going to see marks on a page, which other people might
Yeah,
have
it's definitely
already got. And if
yeah, it's
you have
definitely about
nothing to
conveying your passion.
differentiate yourself from others, then what makes a university choose you over someone else?
Yeah, definitely. But there's all these sort of it just strong academic work is not good enough to differentiate you from the crowd. As I was speaking to this guy who works, and I'm going to talk more about networking later, but I was speaking to this guy, and I've watched some of his talks, listened to his podcast, who works at Baker McKenzie, which is the third biggest law firm in the world. Um,
What's his podcast called?
it's called More from Law by Harry Clark,
Okay, so
and
if
he's
any
a
of you are
really clever
interested in
guy.
law, I'd recommend listening to that podcast by Harry Clark.
Definitely, it's a really really good one. It's really good. It's really interesting and engaging. Anyway, so this Harry Clark, he talks about how, and Sophie Pender, who's another person on the talk, how everyone who applies to the best firms in law, but this applies across the board for every job, will have in general really strong academic performance. So why would they employ you over someone else who has a really strong academic performance? And it's all about showing your passion for your subject, and then being different, not confirming to, ooh, I reckon the employers will like it if I talk about how interested I am in some really like detailed area of the law, which is actually
Now,
really boring in reality.
fair warning, this podcast is going to be fairly law based because it's a subject that both you and I are interested in, but it does apply to other forms of work such as
Well, yeah,
architecture. There are plenty of courses on Coursera and plenty of talks on websites like TEDx for you to look into and learn about various different subjects. For my EPQ, which is something you may laugh at, Ewan, because Monmouth doesn't really focus on EPQs very much, but Hurtwood does,
I know
which is
loads
a
of
school I
people
go.
do EPQs.
Well, anyway, so for my EPQ, I went on Coursera, and it's going to be like a philosophy-based short film, which I'm writing and scoring and doing stuff for. But basically, you can find. It just showed me that how in detail online courses can get, and they're always kind of looked down on. Well, especially before coronavirus, they were always kind of people thought an online course is kind of second to live education when you're there in a room with a tutor or a teacher or a lecturer, but they can be incredibly useful, and they are looked for in applications to university and applications for apprenticeships and all that. They do look for any extra education you've taken on, whether that be tutelage, I think tutelage is a word, or online courses. Coursera is a great
Yeah,
place where you can
me.
find so many. You can also look on places like Unifrog for courses like that.
Yeah, yeah, definitely. Anyway, so they're just talking about how, getting back to it, you need something to differentiate yourself. So this is what I worked on. I thought, okay, the first thing I'm going to do, now I've had this reset period, I've realized that being self-pitiful is a complete waste of time, and not doing my schoolwork is very self-destructive. I thought the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to get on top of my schoolwork. So as soon as my schoolwork was set, I did it, whether it's prep, no matter how long it took, I would do it on that day to make sure that I didn't have to worry about deadlines. And I did it to a reasonable degree of quality as well, because I think there's no point doing work if you're not going to fully apply yourself. So that's something
Yeah,
I think is
that
really
is
important for,
quite a
if
hard
you're listening.
mindset to get into, though. That takes a lot of will. Because speaking as a
Yeah,
person with an economics essay due Friday, which I still haven't done, it's hard to get yourself into a mindset where you're like, okay, I've been given work, I'm going to sit down and do it. But it does help. It really does, because when you don't do work in time or you leave it to the last minute, you're stressed and you do it badly. Or not badly, depends on, your talent in doing work quickly. But the main point is stress. And when you're stressed, you're obviously not going to perform as well as you could do if you'd taken that pressure off yourself. And it is up to you. Like, however much you want to pass off the blame to loads of your teachers giving you tons of work and stuff, which is what I do all the time. I blame my teachers and I blame my school and I blame
mm,
everyone but me. But at the end of the day, it's your decision when you do it, and your decision
yeah,
how much
exactly.
time you're going to put into it.
For me, it's just like I sit down and I think I will not get up off this seat, even for breaks or anything, to get a drink until I have finished this work, and I just fully apply myself until it's done. And it's such,
I
you
used
get
to,
such a sort of feeling of relief when it's done.
yeah, I used to try and argue to myself that, yeah, I work better when there's music on. It helps me focus.
Oh
But
no,
recently, I learned even music without lyrics. I used to listen to like instrumentals and shit to help me focus. But
mm,
to be honest, there's nothing more helpful for you working than a silent room. And in boarding school, particularly, which is what I do now, because I'm just that cool. Um, Particularly in boarding school, it's
mm.
hard to find places where there's no distractions. So you've kind of got to do all that you can to eliminate distractions, and that's half the battle. Kind of getting in an area where and a mindset where you're ready to work and you can work.
Yeah, that's really important. And then I think the next thing I learned when I thought, okay, I'm starting to get on top of my schoolwork, what more can I do? Which doesn't take much effort, and it's starting to read. And then I'm sure there's people out there who are already reading, but for people like me who for the past 17 years not read at all. And I've just thought, why would I read? It's incredibly boring. It's a waste of my time. I can be playing Xbox. I can be watching TV. Well, I was I was just so wrong, and I'm trying to catch up
I
to
was just so
all that
wrong,
lost
and I've
time.
learned so much in the last 6 weeks. It's completely turned my life around.
Okay, enough with the mocking. No, but it genuinely
No,
has.
I no,
In
I am a very patronizing person, but like it does help. And I used to be quite good at reading, but I'm not anymore. And I've noticed what that's done to how quickly I can do work, the vocabulary I use in my essays. If you read extra, it immediately places you above other students that may want to be going to the places you want to go. So, and even then, you may
especially
find it interesting. Like
yeah,
there
but
is a slight
especially
chance that you
subject
can be
specific.
interested in what you read.
Yeah. So what I did is the first book I read, and this is quite dense for the majority of people. I enjoyed it, but that's maybe just because I'm weird. Is Politics by Aristotle. Um.
You
So,
started with ancient
but those
Greece. That's
sort of
quite a heavy one to go with.
yeah, sort of. Well, it's sort of political philosophy. That's what it is. It's
Yeah.
to be specific. But anyway, these sort of academic books, which are short, all of them are like 120, 140 pages. You can get through them fairly quickly. For people who are studying politics, economics, philosophy, whatever, these kind of books will be incredibly important. And
I've
there's
got
loads I can sort of list off, which would be good for you to read, like On Liberty by J.S. Mill or A Long Road to Serfdom by Hayek. And if you just
yeah, I've
spent an hour and a half each night doing it, it will just improve your general understanding of your subject by untold amounts.
I was given a book by a friend, Lily, for Christmas just because we'd been joking about it. Because we're weird and we joke about nihilism. But I was given a book called The Works of Friedrich Nietzsche or something like that. And I just started reading it and learning about nihilism and its origins. It's very interesting. Like you
Okay, cool.
nihilism
For
is one of
everyone else
the
out there, yeah.
nihilism is one of the most popular philosophies around today, and it's quite interesting to hear where it came from and the kind of background to what made the man think about that a couple centuries ago. Think like that when surrounded by philosophies based on religion.
Yeah, yeah, definitely. But you see these sort of things, it's so easy to dip into and learn much and get impassioned about it, and that's really important. So the way I would advise anyone to start to get into it is to read about a book. I'm trying once every 2 weeks. You can do once every 3 weeks, once a month. I don't mind however long you want, but then
You
to
hear that,
read
guys? Ewan
for an
doesn't
hour
mind.
a night
You won't
maybe.
disappoint him.
And you won't disappoint me because it's all about sort of doing what's right for you. But then what I would recommend is if it is an academic book, which you should try and read, is to make notes on it actively throughout the chapter and then maybe send it to yourself on Facebook Messenger. That's what I do. So you've got those notes there with you forever without taking up any memory on your phone. And then when you come to writing your personal statement, it'll all be there and ready for you, which is
Mhm.
so helpful, which is definitely going to help me out when I sort of start writing over the summer.
So we've had a talk about courses you can do and extra reading you can do. Why don't we have a little discussion, little chit chat about networking and trying to put your foot in the door of the industry you want to get into?
Yeah, so this is such a complicated subject, and I just want to tell everyone out there before they say, "Oh, Ewan's told me to do this, so I'm going to do that." Is that I am a relative novice. I've been networking for a relatively short amount of time, and what I'm going to tell you is what's worked for me and what sort of got some success so far. But it's also important about finding what's right for you, see what works. So don't take it at face value. So to begin with, I think networking, when you think of networking, you think of LinkedIn, which is an app on your phone. It's really simple. It's sort of like Facebook, but more business related and made for
Yeah,
networking. If
you
you
can
make
create
yourself an account,
profiles, and it allows you
yeah, and it's all
to
about selling yourself.
it allows you to look up people in industries that you want to enter. It allows you to contact them. It's useful in terms of finding out what is required to get into the industry you want to get into, be it law or architecture is the one I mentioned earlier. Even stuff like directing and acting and music producing and all that
Anything, literally
creative
anything.
stuff. Yeah, you can find anyone on it if they have been bothered to
Yeah,
make a profile, which is quite a few people because it's a very up and coming. I don't know how long it's been around for, but it's. I
LinkedIn's
think my
been
dad
around for
uses
so
it
long.
to find employees, and it's yeah. If you want a head start, use LinkedIn because there will be a bunch of people already using it, and they're already ahead of you. And I don't want to be existential or anything, but it's going to be hard to get the life that you want, and LinkedIn makes it a little bit easier.
Potentially, if you do it right. So
Yeah,
what you need to do when you're making your LinkedIn account is you need to think, I am selling myself as a product. So I'm going to put every single achievement I've got
you're
in
like
a
a you're like
very
a sexy
sort of
piece
nice,
of meat.
elegant format. You are. So and you want to sort of phrase everything really well. You don't want to do anything stupid. You want to take it really seriously. So my profile picture is a picture of me in a suit. I've got all my school achievements and my placements in there, looking very nice. It's also important that you get a picture of you smiling because you want to convey the opinion
Well,
that you're a happy person.
and if you've got a buzz cut over quarantine, mentioning no names, not me or anything, don't don't put a picture of you with a buzz cut.
No, no, probably not. Make yourself good looking. You want to be as good looking as possible
You want to
and
catfish
very
employers.
open and smiley. Exactly. So, what I've been doing in terms of using this is I've been attending online talks I might have found out through LinkedIn, and then I've been emailing different people. And when you're emailing, make sure you're really formal. When you get a reply and you're replying to their reply, make sure you mirror their format so they think, oh, we've got a bit of things going in common, that sort of thing.
We've
Be
got a
really thankful. Make
connection.
sure exactly. Well, it just mirroring people is a really sort of important tactic when you're doing that. Anyway, so
What's this? Um, it's the finest form of flattery or something. Yeah, I'm. I
yeah,
don't know the
something,
saying. I'd have to bring
something,
it up.
whatever. It's really, it's just a little nice thing which people subconsciously pick up. Anyway, so I've been attending loads of talks from these different people. Head of talent spotting from Goldman Sachs, which are one of the biggest financial firms in the world. And they were talking about sort of how important LinkedIn is in selling yourself. And
The
then,
current
so
chancellor of the Exchequer uh, was a former Goldman Sachs employee.
there you go. There you go. These people are big and successful and genius. So listen to their advice. So what you need to
Did you
do
just
is you need
describe
to
yourself
try
as a
and
genius?
know the Goldman Sachs employees.
But that's where you want to be.
So I do not want to work for Goldman Sachs. It's incredibly stressful and horrible. The
Okay.
money's good though. But anyway, so what you need to do is when you get a connection, you've emailed someone, they get a reply, make sure you email them back as soon as possible. Be really nice and formal. Or if you've just met up with someone in person, whether it's work experience or something, try and email them back within 2 days. Try and develop a dialogue, because that sort of thing can take you a long way in the future. And remember that maybe a lot of you guys in the future will have really successful careers. So what you want to do is reciprocate. So if
I
someone
think,
comes to you asking for help, you need to remember that these people helped you and give
yeah,
back.
I think something that can't be stressed enough is if you are fortunate enough to have parents or godparents with
Hello?
with jobs in the fields you want to enter, which is very likely you may have been
Mm.
inspired by them. Use it. How my sister got work experience at a law firm was most companies have a lawyer in their midst, a corporate lawyer in their midst, in order to back them up if they get into any financial trouble or any trouble with the law or anything. So my sister basically got into touch with the corporate lawyer in my dad's company, and that corporate lawyer got them a job at a law firm. So if you are fortunate enough to have these links, for God's sake, use them. And you probably will, because the people listening to this podcast will most likely be people from the schools that you and I go to, and they're both private schools. So your parents
No,
will
but
be earning
even
enough to send you to a private school. So use
but
any
even
links you
so,
can get from
I want to establish that there's sort of this idea of privilege. You don't have to be privileged to get all
them. No,
these
you
networks
don't
and
have
links,
to,
because there's
but
so
it
many
helps.
people. Yeah, yeah, I've emailed random people who I have no idea. Like, they have no idea who I am. I know a tiny bit about them because I know they're a successful lawyer, and I've asked for advice and tips. And loads of them are really nice people who give you advice back. One of them, the guy at Baker McKenzie, sent me 4 links to loads of resources and sent me his cover letter when he applied to Baker McKenzie on how to write my personal statement. So loads of
Yeah,
these
so
people are just really nice. So you need to just actually apply yourself and send these emails.
need to buck up the courage. Like, even if you don't have these links from your parents or people it's up to you to make them then at that point. So as Ewan said, you've just got to find people in the fields that you want to enter and get yourself in contact with them.
Yeah. So I'm guessing a lot of you guys are going to be thinking, okay, they've talked about how to get into networking, how to do your schoolwork, how to do all these online talks, which I haven't talked about much. I know Zach has, but I'm just saying there's loads of resources: Coursera, edX, Ivy League, and then there's ones on LinkedIn as well. And then there's loads of free online talks which Oxbridge give. So that's my whistle top tour of what I've done. And they're really detailed, by the way. It's like equivalent to doing an AS level. There's like that much detail in 5 hours or 20 hours or however long the course is. So networking, online courses, reading, how the hell are you going to fit all that in to one day as well as schoolwork? Well, I think that's where probably my most important lesson has been learned, and that's in scheduling. I think
Yeah.
it's so much easier to get all of this done if you are really strict with your schedule and get a routine. So I wake up at 7 a.m. I've finished breakfast and had everything done by 8 a.m. From 8 a.m. to 9 a.m. I do my history coursework. Then 9 a.m. to 2:30 or whatever, I do schoolwork. And then from then on, I do my Coursera course, which is American law at the moment, which is really interesting with everything that's going on at the moment in America.
Yeah, because
And then,
there's very different systems of law all across the world. Like the British system of law is very different to the American. This might be very obvious, and it is, but it's worth noting that if you gather information from all across the world, it's gonna make you understand the field that you want to enter more, and it means that you can go to other countries to work, which is another very appealing thing to do, especially in the modern day, because it's such a common thing now that people migrate to other countries because it's where they want to work. And the
yeah,
information you
I'm
gather,
definitely interested in working in America.
Yeah, the information
Sorry,
you
it's like
gather about the system of. Okay, go on.
there's a delay in the podcast, so I always cut you off, then you cut me off. It's quite just to
Yeah,
contextualize it for people.
and then earlier you were. I might do some fancy editing and then take out the delay by putting you ahead of me. But also earlier you weren't wearing
Perfect.
headphones and you could hear my call through your side. Anyway, um, so what I was saying is you can, if you gather information in one country about the field that you want to enter, for example, law, because it's what you and I know the most about. I know it might be a bit annoying, but gathering information about law in another country gives you that opportunity. Information isn't universal, so you've got to make the effort to understand how it works where you want to live.
Yeah, yeah, definitely. Just these little bits of extra things, and then before bed, I do an hour and a half of reading, whatever sort of works for me. And then I want to say though, just because we're doing this doesn't mean I'm constantly working. On weekends, I have a bit of time off. I watch TV a bit, but throughout the week, I
I
try
am
not to
human, I
watch
promise.
any TV. Mm. Is that, well, it's just important to make sure that you relax and let off
Yeah,
some steam. When Corona's over, go out, speak with your friends, do exercise, that sort of thing. It's not saying you should be constantly working or you're never going to be successful. It's more about try and sacrifice some of your short-term satisfaction activities like watching TV for some long-term satisfaction activities like taking a Coursera course.
yeah, it's
And
long-term
that's what we're trying to do.
satisfaction because it helps you be more educated about the field you want to enter, maybe get a better university in the future, and then eventually get a better job, get higher wages, higher standing of living. That's what Ewan means by long-term satisfaction.
Yeah, so it's just about finding a better balance and trying to, maybe you can't do all these things straight away, but trying to slowly integrate them into your routine. Then eventually you're going to feel a lot better about yourself when you're doing all these things. And that's what's happened to me because I no longer feel like I have no work ethic and I'm getting nowhere and I'm not going to get the job I want. I'm feeling okay, maybe I've got a lot of work to go, a lot of personal self-improvement to go, but I'm on the right track now.
I think I'm a bit behind you there because my my schedule's pretty yeah, it's pretty flexible. Depends on when I wake up. I don't have an alarm, and even if I did, I don't wake up to them. So my schedule usually starts at 11:30.
Well, some people, this is an important thing to notice as well. Just because you wake up early doesn't mean you're more productive. People's natural sleep pattern
You
is
are more
different for
productive than me.
everyone. No, no, but as in, just because you wake up early and then you finish your work earlier doesn't mean you're more productive than someone wakes up late and finishes their work later. Some things work better for one person than another person. So you might just prefer
Yeah.
working when it's late, and that's fine as long as you get it done.
Sometimes waking up early isn't about the amount of work you can do. It's about the amount of free time that you have. Because if you wake up like me, 11:30, then you've got to spend the rest of the day
Mm.
working basically because you've just sacrificed hours in the morning. If you wake up at
Yeah,
8, 9, then you have more free time during the day and it's less stressful and you feel happier and more accomplished. I know this from about the 3 times I've woken up at 8 accidentally over coronavirus.
well, yeah. What sort of whatever works for you. So that's what I just wanted to talk about today. Is this general sort of mini excursion into self-improvement I've had of trying to be a better person than I was last year, and I feel sort of less compelled to be stressed or worried about anything now because I think okay, I'm getting stuff done.
Yeah. So
So thank
let's
you for letting me speak today.
no problem. It was very interesting. It's not something I know much about because I'm too lazy to, but I'm sure I'll take that to heart, and I'm sure some people listening will too, because why wouldn't you do something which will make you happier in the long term? But
Yeah.
as, as well as that, now that we're easing ourselves out of lockdown, some people doing it more quicker than others. You and
Mm.
there,
Yep.
you can't forget, now that we're returning to the world as it used to be slightly. You can't forget the lessons you've learned.
Yeah,
Mainly
definitely. I'm gonna continue
how
to apply
useful it is to utilize the internet and get further ahead than people who just go back to how they were, only relying on what they're told by their teachers or their employers in the moment or the lecturers. Coronavirus has kind
it.
of
That's
taught
something.
us a certain amount of independence because it's all done over the internet. You can choose to attend lectures, to watch what you're told, to do the background research for EPQ, whatever. You've got a level of independence now that you didn't have before, and you've got to remember that that independence doesn't just go away once we all return to how life used to be, or
Mm.
something resembling what life used to be.
And definitely something I've learned is that you really need to look at the syllabus for your school courses, because relying on what your teacher teaches you is very sort of risky in a way, because they teach you what they think you should know, rather than
There's always a amount of
necessarily
teacher
what the
bias.
examiner thinks you should know. Yeah, so get your syllabus up, read it, and then if the teacher sets a prep which is nothing to do with the syllabus and is a complete waste of time, put no effort into it and do other work which is useful. And then if it's to do with the
I'm sure your
syllabus,
teachers love you,
put all
Ewan.
your effort. Well, it's just something like when I'm making notes for my history, I've printed off the syllabus, and I make sure that I'm meeting all the sort of guidelines. And then if there's bits of notes in my folder which are nothing to do with the syllabus, I think scrap that. I'm going to put it in the bin. It's a waste of my time.
Yeah, I'm quite lucky that my history teacher is an examiner, so she does understand what they're looking for and what you need to know. And one of the theatre teachers or drama teachers in my school, not my specific one, but he's there if I need to talk to him, is on the exam board. So he helps put together the information that you need to know. So if you think there's a teacher in your school that is an examiner or knows more about what is necessary for the exam, don't be afraid to talk to them. It's not being snaky on your teacher if you go to another one just for a little extra help or to gain a certain amount of knowledge that you're not getting in your lessons. Some teachers are more experienced than others. If you have a young teacher who's recently just become one, then don't be afraid to talk to older, more experienced teachers in your school just to see if it all comes together, if the knowledge crosses. Like, you have so much information at your disposal if you go to a school that you can't be afraid to use it.
Yeah, definitely, definitely.
Anyway, I think it would be wrong of us to do a podcast talking about the news of the week, even though we haven't really done much of that, to avoid the topic of the murder of George Floyd in Minneapolis. So
Yeah.
basically, for those who don't know, which is not going to be many of you, there was a murder a few days ago. I think 5 days ago now, where a white American police officer in Minneapolis choked an innocent man to death, an innocent black man to death. It is important to mention his race because it was a racially motivated murder, and it kind of just brings up the fundamental flaws in the justice system in the US because
Well,
there are
this is the thing
many.
which I've been well. See, now this is going to be interesting because I
Okay,
disagree with you, but also agree with you. So I
okay.
think the
Tell
actual justice system, the legal system of the US, has so many anti-racist measures, and even in their constitution, they're very sort of all about
It
being
was
cosmopolitan,
the
diverse.
80th Amendment, I think, was the one referring to race.
Yeah, and so all these, it's not like it's legal to racially attack someone based on their race in the US.
Yeah,
It's
yeah.
illegal, and there's all those measures
There's
against
even
them.
been recent laws put in place, I think, under the Clinton administration, that referring specifically to hate crimes, which
Yeah,
are
so it's not.
crimes motivated by difference. If someone else is different to you and you attack them specifically for it, that is a different type of crime now. And that was
Yeah,
put in
so
place in the 90s under Clinton, I think.
this is what makes it such a problem. It's not like the system endorses hate crimes. It's that there's such a systematic problem of racism in America within the sort of fabric of their society that
Yeah,
it's so difficult to root out. It's not like, oh, it's the fault of their laws. We need to change the law. No, that's not true. You need to change a whole sort of social trend, a whole opinion of America, which is incredibly difficult, and that's why it's such a big
yeah.
problem.
And
But one of the things,
that's why the whole looting and rioting thing has not just stayed in Minneapolis, because it is a nationwide problem. You see riots starting in LA now as well, police cars being attacked. This
Texas,
is systematic. This isn't
yeah,
an you saw it with I can't remember his full name. It was Aubrey something a couple months ago. The
mm,
black man who was shot by an ex police officer whilst jogging. It is
yeah,
not an isolated incident. This is happening way too often. It's scary, you know.
yeah. Well, this is the thing which I thought summarized the incident so well. It's sort of scary that Franklin Delano Roosevelt, who's arguably one of the best presidents in the United States, he tried to bring in anti-racist rules. He brought in a large amount of social change and led America out of the sort of Great Recession and the stock market crash. And he said a quote which was, "We have always held to the hope, the belief, the conviction that there is a better life, a better world beyond the horizon." Whilst the current president of the United States said, "When the looting starts, the
The
shooting
shooting
starts."
starts. Yeah,
How about that for such a sharp contrast, for sort
it's
of what an incredibly hope-filled and powering quote, to "When the looting starts, the shooting starts."
it just shows that there's no federal backlash for this sort of thing at the moment with a president like Trump. There's no over
But
there's no bigger force looking over the state issues.
No, but even under Obama, they couldn't crack down on this. It doesn't matter. And Obama is one of the sort of greatest leaders of the free world there's been. He's famous around the globe for being a sort of leader of equality and
Yeah,
liberty.
he was the first
Even
American
so,
black president, wasn't he? That's obviously
yeah,
gonna have some relevance in a country like America.
yeah, but even so, it just didn't make a difference that it's so embedded into their culture. It's frightening.
Yes. Well, there are many things you can do. I know, because you and I are white British teenagers, thousands of miles away from the incident. There is still things we can do. So, for example, there is a change.org petition to have the people responsible charged with murder. I think they have been now. I'm not quite sure.
One
I'm
of
not
them
keeping
has. I don't think
yeah,
the others will be charged with murder, but maybe as
manslaughter.
a
Well, they don't have manslaughter
no,
in the
it's
US, do they? It would be a
item.
degree of murder.
Yeah, so third degree is manslaughter, which is what the guy who's actually done it been charged with, which is slightly
Yeah.
scary that he's been charged with
Yeah.
manslaughter, not proper murder.
He
But
was kneeling
anyway,
on his neck. Okay. Uh,
you could tell he had this sort of power complex where he thought,
yeah.
I'm in control of this human being and I'm gonna squeeze the life out of him just because I'm a
It's terrifying.
sick
Have you
fuck.
seen the video?
Yeah, I have.
It's
Yeah.
it gave me chills. Jesus. Also, I don't mean to undermine this very serious conversation we're having, but have you eaten your mic again?
Yeah, I just did. I'm
Okay,
sorry.
wonderful. Um,
Yeah.
so you can sign the change.org petition. There's also a petition on the whitehouse.gov website. There you can also send a message to the district attorney in Minneapolis. I'll leave his email below, and you can also contact the governor's office of Minnesota's the state. I think it's Minnesota.
Yeah.
Yeah, so you can also contact the mayor's office of Minneapolis and the governor's office of Minnesota. So there are things you can do, because this is not an isolated incident, and it can't be allowed to happen at this rate ever again. And I'm quite glad. Like, many argue that, the rioting in Minneapolis and all across the US won't stop racism. It's more of a movement to show that if you do this, we're not going to sit by and let it happen anymore.
Yeah, and then so many people ask me, Ewan, why do you want to go into law? It sounds like the most dense line of work. It's all about paperwork, and even when you do go into court, you've got to sort of shuffle through these huge binders. Why do you want to do it? Well, this is why I want to do it. I'm interested in human rights law, and I feel like if I'm going to do something with my life, I want to make the world that tiniest, smallest bit better, which is in within my ability, and that's why I want to go into law.
And there are many fields in which you can do that. And I know it's a touchy subject at the moment, but police work, you can try and do that. If you enter the system where the issue is, you can better it from the inside. If you rise up the ranks, there are many ways in which you can make the world a better place. And I do have faith. I have that FDR faith that in the future the world will be a better place. And there's many people and many ways in which you can do that. And I think that is a nice sentiment to end the podcast on. So
Yeah,
thank you so much, Ewan, for joining me and
thank
discussing
you for having
the
me.
no problem, and discussing what you can be doing in lockdown, and for talking about the issue of George Floyd and the systematic racism in the United States, because that's what it is. It's not an accident. It's not an isolated thing. But anyway, thank you so much for listening, everyone. The calendar, the schedule for these podcasts is very flexible. We both have a lot of schoolwork, and we'll just do it when there's something interesting we can talk about, and we've all got the time. So I'd like to thank you again, and see you next time. Thanks for watching. Thank you for listening to the Weird, the Welsh, and the Wonderful podcast.